School feeding program crisis in KwaZulu-Natal has still not been resolved. Thousands of children have not received meals at school. For many, this is their only meal of the day. uMngeni Mayor Christopher Pappas says the Education Department is heartless for allowing this to happen. The DA-led municipality has now allocated 70,000 rands to help. It's partnered with local NGOs to provide some relief. And Mayor Christopher Pappas joins us now for more on this, just to weigh in and fill us in on their efforts to intervene. Mayor, thank you so much for your time and good morning to you. I mean, when you first heard of the news that many children, in their thousands to be frank, out in KwaZulu-Natal are going hungry, they're not receiving their meals at school, this usually the only meal of the day that they even are afforded, what came to mind in terms of where this money went to? Where is the budget that is meant to take care of these kids and their nutrition?
Thanks for having me this morning. Good morning to you too. Yeah, I was traveling back from a meeting in Durban, and I had seen a statement by messages during the start of the day. But when I was listening to the radio and sort of going through my messages, I sort of understand the extent of the problem. Having contacted some of the principals in our area, you really get to understand the scale of it, and it's not thousands; it's tens of thousands of children across the province. Now, I can't exactly assist across the entire province. I'd love to do that, but we, stood up and I said we have to try and do something locally. You do quick calculations on your cell phone, and you realize if you're trying to budget 20 rand per child per day, we've got around 8,000 children relying on this particular scheme. You suddenly have a very huge bill. So you can't commit as local government to something like that, but you also can't sit back and do nothing. So in consultation with some of the local NGOs and having looked at what our budgets allow in terms of disaster response, I mean, this is a disaster. You can't have people going hungry, especially children. We were able to find that within our disaster management budget. It's definitely not enough. I mean, I'd love to be able to fund the scheme indefinitely until the program comes back online, but that's just not possible for local government where it's not our mandate, especially our small municipalities. But we couldn't sit back and do nothing. We are trying hard to get public donations as well. I'll get a full report back on our first day of attempt. Just messages from the NGOs they've already started to roll out some of the food in different areas.
When it comes to this KZN feeding scheme tender, Mayor, do you have any information whatsoever about what went wrong? Because it seems that an inexperienced, organization might have received this, might have abandoned this scheme. It seemed there's an immediate brazen stop with an organization that had, given these services previously, no explanation whatsoever given to that NGO. And then some NGO just popped out of nowhere, was given such a huge responsibility to feed these thousands of kids around the province, and it seems they've now went AWOL. But what information do you know about what went wrong with this tender scheme?
So, as I said, our spokesperson, Dr. Imran Kika, who's our spokesperson in the legislature for education, is doing all that he can to investigate this. And there's different reports. Even within my own office, people who've got contacts in different levels of government have got different reports. But what it seems like is a typical example of what happens with these massive government contracts, and that there's an abuse of the system to try and allocate a preferred bidder. And in this case, someone who, as you say, does not have the necessary skills, experience to roll out a project of this scale. Previously, what would also happen is that the allocation or the project would be run at a more localized level, with distribution happening within the area with a lot of different service providers. What it seems like the government is pushing for now is to have one main contractor, and you can obviously see why when you're speaking of hundreds of millions of rands. But to have one main contractor that then runs the program, and there's a lot of money involved here, and where there's money and ANC is involved, you know what's going to happen. But more importantly is the system was set up under or in conjunction with what's called RASIT, is the Radical Agrarian Socio-Economic Transformation Program. The provincial government started a few years ago. And the whole ethos behind that was to link local suppliers into the supply chain to be able to provide meals for government hospitals and government clinics, schools, etc. But this has seemed to have broken down. It was a great concept, and it was going to help, especially emerging black businesses, into the economy. But once again, that's failed, and now we see big tenderpreneurs getting these jobs, and that whole concept having fallen away.
And Mayor, let's be frank. I mean, it is black, learners, black children that are affected here, because this, scheme was meant to, this nutrition scheme was meant to benefit those children out in rural areas, in townships, the majority of them, if not all, being black children. How detrimental is it for them, especially if we are talking about this being possibly their only meal of the day that they rely on?
Well, no, you've hit it on the head. It is incredibly detrimental. The whole program, school nutrition was started because there was an understanding that you cannot be teaching learners who are hungry. You cannot be teaching children who have got nutrition deficits and then expect them to perform at the levels of those who have good healthcare, good nutrition, etc. It sets them up for failure or disadvantage more than their life circumstances have made them or born them into. So it just perpetuates that. Even now, the feeding scheme, I mean, it's a great concept and it's a great idea. It's one of those things that you can credit government for if it was working properly, to be able to feed so many thousands of children. But when you abuse what you've set up to be good, then it starts to detriment people in a worse way than what we have now. But as you say, I mean, a lot of children, this is the only meal, and if not the only meal, the only nutritious meal that they have every day.
Oh. We'll leave it there, Mayor, and thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. Mayor Christopher Pappas of uMngeni Municipality talking to us about this multi-million rand tender scheme gone wrong, affecting thousands of children out in KwaZulu-Natal, not receiving the nutritious meals of the day, for many being the only meal. And of course, investigations around this will continue, with many opposition parties questioning, of course, a government out in KwaZulu-Natal about what exactly went wrong and what interventions will be best placed.